continuing our budget workshop, which was your meeting.
Forgot what we did. We went through all the, requests.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went through all the, we were, we got the tax rate.
Oh, yeah.
Up here.
It's in an email.
You know,
Well, okay.
yeah. This is not good, everybody.
Get ready for you to do It's too early.
Now, I have to.
6, 7, 8.
Oh, yeah. You got it here.
But every time I say,
No new revenue.
and I may not just. That's why I'm.
No new revenue. 6, 7, 9. No new revenue on the county. 2, 3. So that's the top.
Right, and that's different scenarios and
I got you.
That's okay.
That's one. Yeah, that's one.
I can't help it. Thank you, Brian. Thank you. You have saved me.
County treasurer.
So what is our measures on our longevity on that sheet? I got longevity. Whatever.
Somebody said, I'm getting ready to order the way. I can do it, but now, okay.
$184.
You got your money back.
Where's the treasurer at?
For the 184,570.
sorry.
Oh, they have to get
what
back.
we have to
Madam Treasurer.
So they just gave me that.
I will.
I know. Our movies. Back of those is
But I've never been in the store.
That's what I did.
I've never been in there. They have.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know what it's gonna do for me.
Good, you know,
Oh, thank you, just saying.
Did you get this?
Oh, it's good. I like it.
This is,
That doesn't have to. I mean, it has.
but when you come up with 1699, 500 about 40,
and that's what we need to get,
that's the minimum you
the
get.
minimum to get what we need to do.
Yeah.
And it's 6.
Oh, yes.
So I don't think.
Okay, just a minute.
I have an explanation.
Tax rate, we need to get what we need.
Yes, no, I,
Here's the,
yes, I have an explanation.
184 of the general fund, 184, 570.
TV stresses me.
Does that include the retirement and all of that? Okay. It also includes, Jackie, does it also include self-insurance?
Yeah.
It was all of it.
Yeah, I think it's that movement and that line is. Do you do the big thread or little thread? I do. Yes. My mother-in-law did it for years. And she would do, co-sign. She could-
6782.
And then she got to where she could do it just on feel. She had done it so long, but that's how I got to it. I always did the big thing. I was like, I do want to do my baby.
What is the rate?
But I'm gonna feel better than I did before. The needle seems to feel. No. Yes, yes.
Oh, I have. But I mean, it's when
It's not, you know, I used to make bodies and
that has to be our base.
stuff. You know how I took pictures of theirs, and then they had this plastic squares.
Okay.
That big plastic squares.
Yes.
Big crochet.
You're talking about the red.
No.
Yes.
Still, yeah.
I made, cafe frames, crochet cafe frames. And, my bedroom.
That also 10,000, 10,000 side do shares.
But I've done some more, I like doing that.
Well, yeah, what I would love to do is go to our minimum, and then see what we need to make sure. It's all about, to get those, that admin on. There's a way that
Yeah.
increases the longevity.
That's.
Oh, Lord. In Louisiana.
Right. That's included in that one.
And I did for her, and I was like, "Well,
Just texted me.
and Cheyenne got hold of the tag of her in Wheatfield.
No, they
And it
don't,
was a long.
they don't think they need the
They're
vaccine.
too young for that. And I would love to.
Okay. Or Lynette, or Donnie,
Yes.
can you figure the rate for us to collect the 6?
That's the one that.
Okay.
What's that?
For us to collect the minimum amount we need is 94% without any add-ons, just the longevity, the insurance, the retirement increase, which is $6,899,489 on the collection side.
So, I do. So on the rate, if you go up 1 cent, how much does it increase? Isn't that what you're asking?
No, here's how much money we need.
It shows you at the bottom, if you go to the bottom, on the budget that says no new revenue tax for general.
Yeah.
If you go to the last page, it shows you we're in a 181,535.43 deficit.
Right.
That's what we need to balance the budget of the no new tax, you just want to say that, no new tax.
Right.
And that's what I put on this, the no new tax.
Right.
It's 6292.
Yeah, so we have to, so what's the rate to cover that 181,530?
And that's why I'm asking Lynette.
Oh, okay.
Each cent or each half a cent you go up generates how much money. And you should be able to kind of figure it out
Should be able to divide it out.
on what I've got on your estimates on this sheet.
Yeah, we know about where it is in between the two, where it falls in. Falls in between .6392 and .6492.
I'm not.
Yeah, they're not.
I know where you're at.
181.
Yeah, but I don't like that.
Do you want me to send you a late notice?
At 3 o'clock. At 3 o'clock.
6782.
I receive it, okay?
Quit worrying, it'll be fine. Right, Lynette?
You want to say this?
She's worried about a report. Quit worrying. I just don't sleep.
Neither does a
Windows.
resident.
Yeah, somewhere falls in there, somewhere, that's what I see. Yeah.
Yeah, it falls in between
This company is out of Houston.
on that crunch.
Yes. On the next page, they had to go.
So you got you crunching.
So I haven't crunched yet. But I don't like that. And if I don't do that, what kind of.
What?
Have you ever known to be the.
Yes, the way it takes.
The digital.
Yes. By adding the one, what is it, 180,
184, so it shows
184.
181.
But if you take what the 90, on the sheet that I did on the estimates, if you take the 94% collection rate and minus the difference in the extra down,
right,
it tells you, that'll give you what it is, what it's gonna, the difference it's gonna generate.
well, then it's going to be
This one, I think I got everything y'all wanna know. Yeah. That would generate, the next one down would generate 106,720.
Right.
So then if you want the next one down versus the, 98.
You'd have to,
Did not have the vaccine.
7035, oh,
But you see.
I mean, a good compliment, sure.
yeah, the difference between
Well,
0.6392 and 0.6592 is $213,000.
Right, so it is falling in between those.
Yeah, you have, he was doing the difference between the third one and the fourth one. It was not, it was.
And then if you see
little
off,
over.
off to the side, I did a $100,000 value to see, to show what the cost and then the difference. As in,
700,000.
yeah,
So their taxes would go up about $20.
Yeah, but the values, I think, would be.
yeah, that's why. you
Well,
think-
the no new revenue rate won't cover the top rate, which is no new revenue, which drops down the same amount of money we're collecting.
Right.
But that won't cover what our increases are. And so for the increases, it falls between 0.6392 and 0.6492, somewhere in there. I think that's right. Is that right? The collection?
No, it doesn't,
Well, that's what y'all were saying, want to do it all between.
it doesn't fall between those two.
Well,
Well, how much we don't need to collect?
Hmm?
How much we don't need to collect by your figure?
Well, you said
181,000.
but if you subtract 6,811, 640 from 692, 8361, it's just a little over 100,000, isn't it?
But we're at the top, at the no new revenue rate, we're gonna collect 6,714,000, but we need to collect 6,800,000, right? So 6,890,000, which is in between the 6,928,000 and the 6,820,000.
Test turned back positive. Yeah.
It's between that third and fourth one.
What this year's rate, what it, still under 100,000.
Commissioners, a question you might want to ask is because it's historically been conservatively estimated to collect only 94%. What the actual is, I believe, is it's closer to 97% collection, but somebody who handles that might be able to give a better understanding of what the actual of that is. That's a difference of $214,000 between
94%.
94 and 97. So that could be a cushion there, and if you got that understanding, that might would help.
So what has it actually ended up being, the collection rate?
It's usually between 95 and 97. It just depends. Last year was a good collection year, strangely enough.
Yeah.
So you have a little bit of a cushion there, and it's possible that it could speak to that 181,000 short if you push that. You've got $880,000 also in hospitalization contingency, and you've got $444,000 in miscellaneous contingency. $810,000, sorry, for hospitalization contingency. So that's available to you during the course of the year. In the event the collection rate is not adequate, you see a shortfall, you could fall back upon that, or you could fall back upon your reserves.
How much do we have in reserves right now?
We'll know more reserves when Darla gets finished with her audit, which should be in a couple of weeks. I mean, I can do an estimate that
Somebody should know, somebody should be able to give you that information within a couple $100,000.
there's not gonna be as much cushion as there has been because of the money we've had to pay out this year to the restoration, not restoration, rehabilitation, remediation, whatever you want to call it.
And also the last 2 years, I think we've gone with the no new revenue rate, right? So,
We did for this year, I don't know about the year before. I think
so
maybe,
you've already eaten up some of your reserve because we didn't increase for the longevity last year.
At one point, we did have a very healthy reserve that was equivalent to about 9 months of the budget. Now, respectfully, if you've eaten off of that, then that could be down to possibly 6 months. The minimum recommendation is 3 months. Ideally, if you get to 6 months, great. And anything above 6 months is just additional cushion. You got an estimated partial carryover of $1,060,000 that is helping to underwrite your cost of your budget also.
and that's cash. That's not a budget, just a budget figure. That's fund balance we're using to balance the budget.
How much?
$1,060,397.69.
Well, I would look at the minimum of 63.92 with your increases in your longevity and all of that on the general fund side. Which would increase it $100,000 to $10. The levy on that. To cover the 181. Yeah, I didn't use the number we did.
When do you get to a point where
Take it
that?
out now.
Went through and added all the true amounts here, and it's $6,954,064. That's what the number is. What they're getting.
So what do you want to do?
According to these sheets here, I added it all up, and $6,954,064 is the number that we got.
Got covered.
954 or 64? 64 what?
$6,954,064.
And if you realize a 97% collection rate, you're gonna look at taking in $6,929,225.
929,
$929.
so you'd still be short just a little bit.
You can move it out of contingency, you can move it out of reserve, you can cover it, because that's an ongoing expense that's gonna be a part of next year's budget unless you start cutting things. but it's gonna give you a pretty close guesstimate without levying any taxation increases to your homeowners, to your property owners.
And then another question, you know, we gotta think about is next year, when we get to this point, you know, if we go with the no new revenue rate, will the value go way down? You know? It's another part of the equation.
I think that's always a,
See that?
$1 million question, because you don't
$7 million.
because they're gonna take the snapshot on January 1st, and that's what the values that they're gonna build the base of what they're going to identify to Lynette for her to calculate. And historically, once we got over $1 million base and information that I'm aware of, the oil and gas industry is picking back up. They're opening up a pretty good, hopeful new well out on 1746, I think it is. That will replace what we lost about 26% of in your base here a couple of years ago. So that generates, that would help to underwrite that cost, even if you stayed at the same no new taxes rate. Because all you're doing is just satisfying the appetite for your budget with the levy.
And they're actually gonna drill the third one too. I mean, that was in the plan already.
And if that gets on board by January 1st, they'll be able to capture that.
I don't know if they're gonna collect, I don't know if they're, even if they hit it, if they're gonna pay it, depending on what oil prices do. So that's a pretty big gamble, taking something that the oil's gonna hit, you know, deciding if your budget's gonna follow through.
I don't think you can anticipate that because you don't have it. It's just like the power plant and just like the pellet plant.
We'd like to have it.
Variation, you know, the variation of what happened to those. You have to go with what the reality of it is. And reality is everything's shifting over to the homeowner. And it, I mean, I don't know about y'all, but mine has increased 10% each year for the last 3 years. And that's where your painful voice is going to be coming to you.
Mine's still increasing from the last time they did that. But it went up 42% on mine, so they only go up 10% compound, so I'm 2 or 3 years ago, I'm still getting increase from that, not including the increase from the new one.
Revolt.
Show up with a show and back.
Full blown revolt. So, another question, okay, what did we pull from, I mean, you're talking about reserves and all that, what did we pull from it this past year? I mean, how fast is that going down?
That $1,067,000, the fund balance is pulled it down. And you're asking me what we used the previous year? I can pull it up on the
I mean, it
computer.
kind of seems like if you take an extra barrel of flour and you keep taking from it all the time, sooner or later, that's gonna go down to a dangerous point too. So you had nothing to pull from. Just a question. I know we're not there yet, but
What rate do we come up with if we cover our minimum? Do we decide on a rate that we cover?
6.3, or 6.4. 6.3,
392 to cover.
What was it, Judge, the last one you were saying, if we had the rate, was it 6.4 now?
If you went with the no new taxes, the 6292, and you calculated an
Oh,
hopeful
97.
97% collection. I mean, you could go back and look historically, you're gonna have some peaks and lows, but you could supplement it from your rate, from your reserves, if you had a downfall or shortfall, I don't mean downfall, shortfall. And I think the real question that y'all are gonna be faced with is, are we gonna go up on taxes? That's kind of the bottom line. Because if you just look at, the facts on this, it's not like as if we're not gonna be able to fund county government to the appetite that it is existed on this year. The money's there. The reserves are adequate. The contingencies are healthy. So your question is gonna be, do we increase the tax rate? And you can make an argument for either side of it. Say, hey, we've always estimated a collection of being 94%, but the reality is we've always done better than that. Some years up to 97, some years maybe as much as 95, but it'll vary.
So if we went with that, no new tax rate,
292.
we would basically be dropping our rate about 5 cents. All right, this indicates something because it's 6,782 now. If we went to 6,7. 292. We'd be close to 5 cents. And now we can only go up 3%, right? From like if next year, if we're not getting enough money and we need to go back up on the rate, we would only be able to go up to 0.65.
Well,
It's actually 4.
we didn't go up last year. We didn't increase in, no new rate. So we were able to bank 3.5% increase in the bank. So this year, we got another 3.5% that we could go up. So we can go up 7% without a voter. And then the third year, you have the same thing. So we have in our increase bank 3.5% right now. So next year, we'll have
7.
yes. Well, we could go up 7% this year. 3.5 got, 3.5 got. So next year, we can go up.
We won't be here next year.
10.5.
We won't have to worry about it.
So we hang it in the trees.
Oh,
Yeah, but you're able to bank that, so it's on a 3-year deal. Isn't that right, Judge? Is that correct?
I'm gonna defer to you
Okay,
on that.
I believe that's correct. It'll roll over 3 years, so you never get more than that. Is that right?
That's true.
So you can, if everything went to pot, you can go up more than 3.5 if you haven't gone up. So we went up 1% this year, we would only bank 2.5% from this year. Would go in our bank, or increased bank. What I would like to know is how much estimated we have in reserves that we're going, at the end of the day, that we can pull from, how many months do we have of operating,
Straight out the road, but operating.
yeah.
Somebody has that information. We've got to know what that is. We don't
If I
need to
can
wait
get
until an
into
outside
that.
auditor tells us what we have and don't have. That should be something that's absolutely common knowledge.
I'm trying to get in the software and this password ain't working. But yes, I can figure it out.
Okay.
Somebody's diamond.
That's good.
It's mine.
Oh.
And I'd also like to know, like Buck said, how much we pulled this past year, if we got that too. Kind of give us a nice snapshot.
Joe, even if it's 2 million, we had the capacity to be able to cover that. Thankfully, I don't think it was, but if it was, we had that. And it was because of the fact that we calculated a lesser percentage of collection for years. And consequently, we banked that and put it in a reserve capacity. Then we were able to speak to that rainy day rather than having to pass a bond or borrow the money that was required of us to do what was done on the courthouse that was done. So we're able to cover it because of those years that we had about 26% of the total values were in the oil and gas arena. That helped the underwrites and that began to fall off. And it hit the net effect of the ship. Because homeowners going to realize the value of that whenever there's other parts, whether it's industry, whether it's minerals. When that has an increase, it offsets your rate that you're gonna impose to satisfy the appetite of the budget. The budget's what we're gonna control. We were told the other day that there was $150,000 liability to underwrite the cost of the retirement account without reducing the local match. And then there was $55,000 that was a deficit on the health insurance side. That's $205,000 of increases just on that from this current year's budget and the next year's budget that is going to have to be addressed. And whether it's addressed through revenues that you already have or increases to the taxes that you levy against your property owners. I don't know of any other source that's going to underwrite that cost.
Well, while she's looking at that, I guess we're gonna look at the county special side, on the road and bridge side. Total increase on that, Joe, was what? Well, according to the sheet, I got 7,546.17. Which that's divided, that's total of the whole collection side. 57,546.17. I just took the amounts on this, sheet. Yeah, road and bridge, contextual here. Took all those.
So what was all four of them together?
The 57,546.17. Well, the other was an estimate, and this is what's on, listed on the sheet. Yeah, that's right.
Should you do like the same amount of money? So this is how much.
So it's broken down on that sheet.
Yeah.
See,
What page are those?
it's on this right here, page 1 of 9. Go down there and circle it. It's gonna be your Well, yes, exactly like that. Well, mine, of course, is back. The road and bridge out of it. Look right here, Mark. It'll say road and bridge right here.
Yeah, I know that, but I think I'm too far back.
But that's how I live in that area.
Oh, it's an issue, oh. Now we got.
I installed mine.
You would.
You find it book.
I did. Road and bridge is one. I didn't have it.
It's four.
We're all redacted, weren't they?
Yeah, you had negative 16.45.
Yeah, there it is. There it is.
So I'm pretty confident I can swallow that and I can adjust some stuff out around. Yeah. Not, and just go with the number revenue rate, I'm comfortable with that. Wherever y'all think y'all need to be at, we'll look at that. With everything as it stands right now,
Yes.
don't increase the, you pay or anything, you know. We don't give a raise, that's without a raise. But we start looking at giving money on raises or whatever, then that number's gonna increase from that, so. Speaking of raises, Leanne sent an optional thing out doing like department increases in department, not longevity over the whole county, but longevity inside your department, each department. Step, 5 year, 10 year, 15, 20 year, whatever it is, however that works within the department. So she sent that out. I don't know if it's the full cost of all of that. I don't know if they got everybody in there or not. I know on the other list, one list, look, I think they left you off there.
Well, the first list, I didn't include any of the officials,
Okay.
and then I went back and thought that maybe I should.
Well, Donnie's is the longest tenured person in her department of anywhere, the whole county and the department.
Does it come with that? What about? Was it like that or what?
Rough shot.
But he retired and came back, though, didn't he?
But, and then he's also retiring this year.
Now,
He's also retiring this year, so it doesn't apply to him.
Comes to that.
so how long have you been elected, Donnie? I mean,
30,
In 22, it'll be 35 years.
34, 35 years,
and how long have you worked at the clerk's office?
40. I worked 10 years before I became elected.
So you got 40 something.
I took like a little 6 weeks leave of absence.
You need a $10 increase. Long ago.
Before I took off.
Get you a gift card for the clerk.
Wait, we need to get up and apply.
Get the trophy.
Thankful to have my dream job.
Yes,
Looks like
help us out a whole lot.
more years.
Okay, I'm gonna tell y'all on your reports how to get what I'm getting. Okay, the cash balance for general, because we're talking about general, correct? You wanna know what would be basically the unencumbered balance. If you look, let me get to the right page. If you go to page 2, where the revenue stops. It shows what was budgeted, the 9,901,991.
911,
862.22. And then it shows you, the next figure shows you the month-to-date collect. The last one, the fiscal activity, is year-to-date. It shows that we still have 535,701.42 to collect to meet what I budgeted. So we're gonna assume that we're gonna collect that because of what the judge was saying, historically, we've collected 97%.
I don't
we
see
don't have
that.
that.
We don't see that.
Well, mine says 9,911.
And then it's not showing the year.
Mike, look at this.
Oh, on the
She
book.
gave us the other day. It's on page 223.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the one you just got is the no new tax rate.
Oh, okay.
If you go in your book,
What page, Judge?
223. In this section right here.
Okay.
It's right after that thumbtack.
Okay, yep.
okay, see, it shows
9,901.
the year-to-date activity is 9,117. We collected 178,873.21 that you're not seeing on that, which gives us a total collection so far of 9,366,160, which leaves us with 535,701.42 yet to collect.
How much?
535,701.42. Okay, so if you take our cash balance of what is literally sitting in the bank now, which is 5,612,942.43, and that's just for general fund, but that's what's sitting in the bank right now. And we're gonna add the 535,701.42 that we think we're gonna get. And all this is a guesstimate. There's no way until it's all said and done with the final numbers on. You add that to it, and then you go down to the expenses at the end. And I calculate on 1 month's expense for general fund, which is the 599, and yours is gonna be a little bit different than mine, because I'm looking at a current budget. 599,885.35, and you subtract that from it, or not subtract, I'm sorry. The 599,885, we have to times 5, so 5 months left in the fiscal year, which comes to 2,999,426.75. So if you take the 5 million less that, the remaining is 535,701.42.
Don't be-
So 5 million.
So basically, you have to take the cash balance
Right.
Right.
and you guesstimate what revenue is gonna come in between now and the end of the year. And then you have to guesstimate the expenses, and you have to use something as a benchmark. So I use a month,
Monthly.
Right.
and times the number of months left,
Okay.
and subtract it. That's gonna give you your cash balance at what y'all call reserve.
And that would be what?
I come up with 535, 701, 42. Which that's not
That's not much.
a healthy balance, because we've tapped into it too much.
So is there any other monies out there not in the budget, just in, this is all the money we have in all the reserves everywhere? Okay. So there's no other money out there. So we,
And you see 1 month of operating expenses cost basically what we've got remaining.
How much do you have on, investments, Madam Treasurer?
I was looking, and I have about $2 million. Does that include that? I mean, it goes in different categories, but does that include,
It's what we got sitting in First National Bank.
you know, I have some in the First National. And
Now what you have extra, I don't know what that is.
some of that's designated money though, right?
some, but there's about $1 million that's general fund. And then there's money there.
Yeah, that's what I would like to know, is how much we have, just in case, where we can pull from too, which it doesn't sound like there's gonna be much there, right?
So we have about $256,000, I'm sorry, in some CDs that are brokered. And we have $195,000 that's in a CD at Natchez Federal Credit Union. We have $247,000 that's in a CD, and 2 CDs at Wichita Falls. And then we have some sweep accounts that have $1.3 million in them.
Is that for general?
That's what I was going.
The majority of that is general. There are a couple that, smaller accounts that are not general, but. the
Jail
majority-
fund is included in that.
The jail is, and it's one of the smaller numbers of that.
Is the road and bridge designated road and bridge?
All of the
money?
road and bridge has been put back into the general fund to get the, higher interest rate at First National.
Okay, yeah, the designated tax made for road and bridge is not included in those numbers, okay?
But you have to realize too, in the budget that we're trying to balance, we're saying $1,060,000, whatever it was, is what we're using to try to balance that budget. So that's gonna knock off some more of
What's over there?
what's in reserve.
Right. So we're steadily eating away at our reserve and our emergency money because of the no new tax rate. Last year, we got some of that money in the courthouse stuff, correct? That where some of that money went?
Yes.
Is there gonna be a match on this money we're supposed to be getting for the courthouse?
We've already made that match by the ADA bathrooms that we put, or gonna be really close to that, by the ADA bathrooms.
Senator got us or whatever,
The what?
the other $1 million or whatever.
Yeah, the match to that is going to be included in the extra that the ADA
So we're not
bathrooms.
gonna have to.
Well, I don't say no. It's gonna be
No.
close.
So what is our collection rate right now? Where are we? You'd have to look. Is it over 50, you think?
Yes. I want to say
I
that
think
we
that's
run
mine.
this right now.
Low 80s. So we're 6 months left, we're probably gonna make that. So if you get the 97, technically, I mean, in theory, does that change your numbers? So if we end up getting just like the judge says, historically 97%, does that change the numbers that you gave us?
Yeah.
I mean, they'll go up significantly, right?
Well, then I have to figure it all out at that collection rate.
21%.
Right.
Yeah, it's figured at 94%.
Correct.
Just at 94, okay.
But what if it's an average based upon what Lynette says? It's between 95 and 97 depending upon the year. What if you go up with 1.5%? So you're looking at 95.5%.
That puts a little more, I think,
So
realistically, where we're
I think it's gonna give y'all a little bit better understanding that there's money that's still there. It's been historically levied or estimated at a lower percentage than historically we have collected. And that's been a little bit of a cushion.
But any money that's collected from past years is not included on this percentage. It's included on the past percentages, right? Like, if they were 5 years behind when they're collecting their taxes, that percentage is not on this past year. If they're paying taxes from 2010, it's gonna go on the 2010 collection rate, not on this rate, right? Is that right?
It's all collections, that percentage is figured in on that 3 year,
Okay.
yeah. And so the figure I used on that was.
I'm still a little miffed at the reserve fee because the auditor-
That's everything for 20.
What's it again?
103.85%.
That's everything. That's all everything.
That's delinquent penalty and interest.
Right.
I'm still a little miffed because the outside auditor had indicated to us in a previous audit that we were well reserved close to 9 months. This is maybe a couple of years ago. Have we burnt through $5 million in a year's period of time that was in our reserve?
What do we spend on?
Well, her reserve that she comes up and gives you has added in the capital
That's
assets.
what the property.
It's not
Machinery,
cash, I'm
equipment.
just talking cash.
Yeah. So any piece of equipment or property or anything like that's added into that, capital assets, something.
That may be the difference.
I've been,
$5 million.
I've been,
Perplexed.
no, I think I've misunderstood what our cash position is because when we were on the school board, you come to me with, we looked at how much we reserved for our position. And I guess I've always believed that the cash that was left over that we've accumulated over time was called reserve. And it was recommended that you have a minimum of 3 months. If you could get to 6 months of an annualized budget, you were well reserved. And so,
So where are we
But we
reserved
spent
at?
$500,000 on our renovations that we did. And then now we've had to pull out another 1.1 million plus some other items.
That was close to 15% for the.
But also the thing that makes it, I won't say complicated, but for lack of a better word, complicated, is the tax rate that Lynette is figuring. When we start paying our tax in October, it's coming in and she's receiving it in as it comes in. But it's really not for this year's budget, it's for next year's budget.
Yeah.
But it looks like you got it in this year, so you look really, really good. But one thing that Darla and them do is they pull all the revenue that is for 2022, they're gonna pull it out.
What's
Just like
paid
what
for
they're doing
2020.
now, they're pulling 2020 out because what we get from October to December is not really the year you're in revenue. It's the revenue to fund your next budget. That's why I don't really like the word reserve,
Right.
because until you do it that way, you're not really getting
You
the
don't have a
true
true
picture.
number of what you got in there. You're using next year's money to look good for this year. So what do we have in cash reserves? How long could we operate on our,
What's it say?
Well, if you
if we counted the investment?
But you have to also look at the debt service. That's money that we transfer to other funds to subsidize them, which I might add right now, the airport is in the negative. So there's some money that you can maneuver there if you choose to lower something, because that right there, just the amount that we transfer to other funds is $751,128. That's what I'm saying, if you knock that off, well then, yeah, we'd be all right.
Yeah.
But we're required on some of that we're not.
Yeah, some of it mandated, some of it's required, and some of it's optional.
Right.
So with our cash reserve, Leanne, and how many months of operation did we go with if all money stopped?
Well, if you look, I'm looking at a current budget report. In 1 month period, because I've already transferred all the money to transfer to the other funds, so that's not being factored in. It's $599,885.35 is what so far in our month that we have spent. Let me run one for
Yeah, go back.
July,
Yeah,
and
go
let me
back
see
some.
what July looks like.
I have it right here, where the expenses are. So last month, our expenses is $1.5 million. So that's on average what we expense out each month.
$1.5 million to operate off of. And how much do we have in cash reserves and investments? Couple million?
About that, a little less in general fund. So about 1.5 in general fund,
So we have about a month's operating cash in the bank,
in my side.
and on your side, yes. That's not included in the collection side, okay? That ain't much money, fellas.
It's a whole lot less than I was led to believe that we had for years. A whole lot less.
I think that courthouse,
According to millions, not a million, but millions.
courthouse project drained a lot of that too.
Well, I think, previous courts that y'all replaced were under that same belief as well.
Well, and we can use the fund balance to balance general.
So asset, didn't realize it was asset when we were looking at.
I just checked, the 2020s are at 94.56% right now.
Say that again?
94.56% right now.
So right at 95.
We're over the bank.
So we're on target. Okay.
And then we've got 5 months left for the collection on last year's taxes.
Cherry's
And we're gonna start this year's taxes in
October,
October.
November.
That's what I do with my longevity check. I take it for the net.
I put it in myself.
That goes right back to the.
I'll leave that there. She forgets about that longevity check. That's what I've heard.
Here's some spoons, but.
It's not spoons, it's forks. I just have a little spoon.
Well, I just got the ones I touched. What is this? Ooh, no, I've got the ones I like. Thank you. I needed some comfort food.
Well, it wasn't.
No, we looked at it. That's what I- that 75,000 on courthouse restoration every year in the budget, is that just put in there in case we have to do something to the courthouse yearly?
Well, I think it's way back when the court was doing that to, I think the local historical commission asked them to keep a certain balance in it. I mean, I don't know, I can,
$100,000.
you were on the court, judges on the court. They wanted a certain amount of money kept in that for that kind of stuff. But I think then they were wanting that money to keep building, and I think finally before Jeff left, the agreement was that we would keep it up to, well, it was 100,000, and I think then they lowered it to 75,000. But now I don't, I mean, you'd have to go back and look at it.
And we use some of that money, cash money we had from the collection center money also too for the courthouse, when we fixed the courthouse this time.
Right.
It still wasn't enough to cover the whole cost of the job. Whole cost of the job is gonna be about 1.6, I think, is what we're gonna be out of pocket on. Somewhere around it.
How much of that's not paid yet?
Oh, we just about paid it all, haven't we, Jackie?
Yeah, I was gonna look at that vendor to see.
It's real close. I mean, it's, once we sign off, then they'll get their final 5 or 8% or whatever.
So now it's modern.
Yeah, we couldn't go any, because we're only in the 1896 master plan, and so we couldn't, you can't deviate from that plan. They allow us to go on neither plan. And so instead of going to 1896 plan, which was a whole lot more expensive, we couldn't use cheap projects, but we could, we could have to use original copy material on that. So that's one of the
5,381.
things that they agreed to, that we didn't have to go back to 1896. Because we were not working under the plan.
Makes no sense.
Yeah. I thought that was what it was all about.
Mm-hmm. Because it's generic as a cucumber.
Which was a lot cheaper than 1896.
It looks good.
It doesn't
At least you
look,
don't have
look
to see-
historic, but it looks good.
Unless there's a ceiling in the courtroom.
Yeah.
Is it flat or is it flat or is it
No, it's flat.
not raised?
Well, that's cool up there.
I think we've got a question that y'all need an understanding of, I certainly do. Jackie's saying we have a monthly expenditure of $600,000.
That's
And we
this
got
month.
okay.
I think that's so far this month, I think. Is that right?
She just calculated it at $599,885 times 5 months, $2.994 million for the remaining amount of this year, based upon what she communicated to us. What I heard treasurer say is that she cut $1.5 million in checks last month. So we've got about a $900,000 variation here. Is that an anomaly for that 1 month?
It could be.
Because we have.
It could be.
we have those
It's a
projects.
guesstimate.
Yeah, well, I know the airport project is a reimbursement deal, we're gonna get reimbursed on it.
But that's not out of.
That's not out of the.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
We did it out of right away.
So what, can we go back and look historically for the first 6 months of this year on how much we spent on general fund? You get a lot better picture of.
Okay.
Leanne,
Sir.
the $1.5 million that you said that you had cut checks for the operation of county government for last month, is that an average? Is that typical?
Yes, sir. Somewhere near about, it sometimes fluctuates about 100,000 more, 100,000 less. But it's usually 1.5, 1.6, 1.4. Yes, sir, it's a pretty good average.
I'm more confused than I've ever been about our county finances over the the 15 years that I've been here right now. I'm sorry, I can't be of any more support to you guys, but I'm just miffed. And it really shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah,
I mean,
Well,
You got-
when you're
you
sitting
gotta-
here with a laptop in your lap and you're trying to pull stuff, I can't guarantee you nothing is exactly right. It's my best guesstimate. I can go back to the office and I can work through and give you a more exact estimate, but all that is an estimate.
Well, we are estimating that we will levy $7 million, just rounded, worth of taxes.
you can't spend a million a year.
we can't
I mean,
spend a
that's
million a
month.
month.
But I'm just trying to use this as simple understanding. We're gonna levy a $7 million budget, and we're gonna collect 94% of that. Then we have to figure out 94%, let's just say $10 million, and we can say, okay, we're gonna collect $9,400,000. We just round it off, or we can just do $1 million, same principle. If we're gonna only collect that much, then we have to build budgets based upon what we're gonna collect. You know,
Okay, for a 6-month period of time, the general fund has spent $4,700,245.92. That was as of June 31st.
4 million what?
$4,700,245.92. And do you want to look with me to make sure I'm reading the right number? This is fiscal activity period activity.
Give me that number one more time, Jack.
$4,700,245.92.
It's an iron line. I just-
Then how can we be spending over $1 million a month?
So that's your average.
That's
over 6
So
months.
that's $787,432 based upon $4,724,592.
I believe the
Divided by
figure that
6
she was giving you included all funds, not just general fund.
Okay,
Oh, well, that makes more sense.
yeah, so that's your average over 6 months. That gets pretty close. What it is.
600,000, basically, what you saying.
700,
Pretty much.
785.
But I think the question is, does that also include those expenses that were being written for the work on the courthouse project? If it did, it's gonna skew because that's a specific project that's not necessarily built into your annualized budget that you budgeted for the operations of all of this.
But that's been paid for out of the courthouse restoration fund.
Not the general fund.
So it would have been included in my totals, not what Jackie said. So on my average at 1.5, 1.4
It's all expenses.
is everything.
Everything.
So at my average, every month, it has included courthouse renovations, what you guys spend,
Everything.
everything. Total expenses for the
So
county.
now the foggy picture is becoming much clearer.
So the first 6 months of this year, we were averaging $787,432 per month. And she's estimating $599,885 for the remaining 5 months of this year. So $2,994,000 added to that.
Is your $599 for this month, Jackie? Is that right? Through, in August, because we're not even through August yet. Is that what you're figuring?
Right, we're not through on that.
Yeah, so.
You're gonna get more money in August.
I'm talking about expenses on that, but
No, we're not through. I mean, they're working on big deals, but I don't know that they're all finished.
so, but I mean, that $599, is that an expense that you, or a collection that you're talking about?
The $599 was expense.
so far this month. You know,
Correct.
so we haven't gone through all this, so you can't, you'd be a lot closer figuring 785 instead of 14 days in through August. Yeah,
Yeah. I don't get the end of the month.
you might even be a lot closer. You're only 13 days in.
It's Friday the 13th.
That's why we're here.
So based upon the numbers we've heard so far, our budget consumption would be $7,818,592, which if we're going to levy a tax to cover that, that's going to increase by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 additional cents. If this is the reality of the operation of an annualized budget by expenses, then
If the budget's just a piece of paper, what the real thing we're spending is that number right there. But going over budget wherever it is, using the fund balance or whatever it is to balance your budget, to have enough money on what you spend. What we put down on paper to keep you from spending more money than that. So we might say we're not gonna collect any more money or no new revenue rate, but we're spending more than what we're collecting.
Well, because collections went down for JP's, well, how many years ago, Trish, when they were calling everybody the DPS to the border? I mean, in fact, I called her the first time I did quarterly state reports because I thought something was messed up because there was not as much money as we were used to getting.
Yeah, but this, I think we're talking about.
But what I'm saying is, what's figured into the general fund budget isn't just property
Yeah.
tax.
But there's other collections
There's other
too.
things that we get from the state, and then our JP's do collections, the county clerk. the
But those are
district
not
clerk.
guaranteed. All that can stop.
Exactly.
Right.
And if you look at some of them, we haven't collected as much in past years.
And some of those fees are required to go to a certain, they're designated fees, if we can't use them to pay the electric bill.
Yeah, because we send about 25, 30,000 every 3 months to the state.
Even though that money comes back in, some of it is
But now it's-
designated.
The what's budgeted in general fund stays in general fund.
Yeah.
Because the other funds that we have in the budget that have state ahead of their name is the money, is the fees that the JPs and the county clerk and the district clerk are collecting for the state.
And I don't see any of those, I see those going down in the legislature as far as Class C like they have now. Our, I don't know what you call it, but our procedures are way less amount of money that you have to have so that you can, waive that fine. So it's a lot less.
Do you waive the fees too on the fine, or do you have to
If
collect?
they are indigent and our level of indigency is real low, you waive everything. for
Waive the
cost
fees
of it.
and the fine, okay.
They have to do community service, that sort of thing, unless it is just such, a burden upon them. But, yeah, the law states, that's kind of a new law last couple of 3 years, so.
So on
And
the,
and it's going more towards not doing anything with
Who sets the
the state,
so on a speeding ticket, what is the base, not potential drive, just the speeding, Class C traffic violation? What is,
It's 100 and, just the court cost is 100 and, I want to say 110 or 102, I don't really remember. And then a non-moving is 67.
okay.
So if you collect 187, then, the counter have that broken down. But if you're indigent, you don't collect anything if they do community service and that sort of thing.
Right.
Which, we're not there to make money off of it, so. They're alter the behavior.
And of that $102, some of that is, majority of that goes, it all goes to the state, and then they divvy it back out to us, but a lot of that is
Jack could
designated
probably answer
to
that
different
more.
funding.
But we
different
we haven't had any kind of overweight tickets in over a year.
Yeah.
And I mean, we used to collect several $1,000s off of that, but since the border, they send a lot of the license and weight down there, and then we don't have one that is relatively living close. So we don't have, we haven't had one in probably well over a year.
Load them up, fine.
And Sergeant Sand, I called him, and that's the reason.
think if you'll look on page 2 of 10 of what was handed to you this morning, where it says revenue total, $9,911,208.22. Out of that, at 0.6292, it's going to account for $6,714,919 from the ad valorem side on page 1. So we've got a total amount of $9,911,000 that we are estimating to come in with all of those revenue collections that we'll make. If you look on page 8 of 10, where it says expense total, $10,092,743. So you have a deficit based upon these numbers of what she's already shared with us, the $181,000. But what I heard the other day is that we had like 223 actual.
That road and bridge is included in that, I think. On the 223,
I don't know,
I think so. Yeah, that's a road and bridge included.
because we transfer out to road and bridge from general fund a supplement to y'all's salaries, each of the 4. So
That's included, right?
correct. And then you have a debt service, of course, that's expressed there of $751,000. Bottom line is, based upon these numbers, we're spending more than we're bringing in, estimated. Just estimated. So how do you address the 181,000 is the first question.
Get DPS to write more tickets.
Well, Commissioner, Governor Abbott's already allotted for another 3 years for that border.
Oh, okay.
There's been money set aside already through the state to pay, what we're seeing at the border will continue.
There's been over 1 million people, according to a congressional report, that have come in through the borders. Is it any wonder that Texas has exploded and has no bed space for coronavirus? 1 million new people. New bodies.
I'd be real concerned about going after no new revenue rate. On the road and bridge, Mike, look, y'all are a lot more in deficit than 1 and 2 is, so wherever y'all think we need to be at on that, I'll be good with that. Do what?
Okay, so you had to point it out.
Well, that's, she had more people there.
Yeah, let's get some of the money that comes with that building and stuff we've done.
And if you look at the top of your budget reports where it says beginning balance, that's how much of your fund balance you're using already to balance this year's budget.
What did you just say?
Where it says beginning balance on
Uh-huh.
the bridge.
Whatever money is sitting in there in the budget line item is your cash fund balance that you're using to balance your budget for this year. One thing when you're looking at general fund 6-month expenditures, you could take out of that figure, but out of the 4,700,245.92, the 751,128, which is a one-time transfer to the other funds, that's not an ongoing month-to-month expense. So you could minus that off of that, it'll give you a better,
That puts it down to about 4 million then, right?
right?
And that gets it closer to the actual number that you're getting. And tell me again what the 4 million figure is.
Just the average 6 months.
The 6 months of this year is what the expenses were, but the 751,128 is figured in that, the money that I transfer to other funds to subsidize those, so it's not every single month.
That's the whole
Operating,
amount, right, for the
So
whole
the-
year, yes.
so the operating expenses have been about $4 million for the first 6 months.
Correct.
Well,
And I want guesstimates to be right, so if anybody else wants to put it together, if I'm wrong, I mean, I'm not above making a mistake, but that's the best way I know how to tell you to do it. I'll give you the reports that I'm using if you wanna look at it, Judge, and, make sure that that my guesstimate is in the ballpark.
Just 94% collection.
Right.
And we're at 94.5, right?
Yeah.
4.5. We're at 0.5% higher than
Than what that's projected. So what would it bring in at 97%? .62. 0.62 times.
You need a blanket?
At 90.
You're cold. That's so
97
wrong.
brings you about how
Can you
much
be so
more?
little and not be
About
cold?
200,000, is that what you said?
The 97% collection rate on the snow revenue.
If I've done it right, I don't know, have
Well, I'm thinking.
214,306.
That's what I get.
Okay, so then that would be 6714919 plus, right at $7 million at this rate.
$6,929,225. If we do collect the 97%,
Right.
that would put us at that.
So theoretically, we have $8 million worth of expenses for the year.
But you got the other collections. So those are estimated collections.
Do we collect $1 million on all that other stuff, Jackie, outside stuff? Besides that.
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes no.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
Somewhere around that anyway.
they're not racking you overweight ticket, that's thousands and thousands.
yeah, because we get to retain a certain amount of that, and without that,
Yeah.
it makes
And that's what's gonna happen. Eventually, you're gonna get in a hole so bad, you're gonna really raise the taxes.
If we went with the second one, 6.3, and 6.393. If we calculate on that, 7% of what we come up with on that,
Hear what?
on the second one, on 6.392. We figured it, I mean, you gotta get 94%,
So you wanna know what it would be at
97.
97?
97%, yeah.
On the second one,
Yeah.
Come up with 7,039,352, minus that,
7 million what?
7,039,352.28.
So this, on the top committees,
So that would be.
Yes, yeah.
the tax levy,
That's at 100%.
That would be another
pretty
217,711.
sure was the very highest when you're still only getting $7,355.
The tax levy times 97%. Tax levy on the second one is 7,257. 64,021 times 9%. Is 7,039,352.28. And the difference between that and 94% is 217,711,93. Or 93.
Ned, do you think 95% would be more of a long-term average of what we've collected?
I think we just talked about giving y'all an idea of what she's averaged over the last 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
So you can use that as a more realistic calculation.
Yes.
Yeah, I have to
Yeah,
go
and,
back off some of that.
and that has fees added into that, correct? The late fees and interest and everything else on that, that's the money, that's the total money you collect.
On that percentage, it's just reflecting the base.
No, I'm talking about for the last 3 years.
Oh, yeah, that's continuing.
That's penalties and everything, so.
That does include penalties?
Not that.
Because the penalties are just kind of like a bonus.
Yeah.
And it's such a small percentage of the total that you actually collect.
Since it's occurrence, they're just, they're not,
There's no penalties on the current.
it's not been on there very long.
But of that, let's say 6% roughly, if we're calculating, we're gonna collect on 95.4%, you got a 6% that you're not gonna collect all of that anyhow, you're only gonna collect or 2%, and on that 1 or 2%, there'll be those penalties that she'll be collecting. So it's, as they say in the fund world, de minimis amount. It's almost.
Some of those amounts are pretty large though, on those sheriff's sales that they do. Those oil companies will come in right at the last minute and pay $200,000 or $300,000. You know, sometimes, yeah, but you look at it, how much of that is fees, you might have a whole bunch of fees on there.
We haven't had that
Right
happen
off.
in a while. We haven't had that happen in a while.
In the old, I didn't think so.
I think the
But,
last,
but over the last 3 years, you might still have got some of
A
that,
lot of, yeah,
you know,
that were there. But generally, the minerals, they're almost 100% collected.
Yeah. I failed to pay $1.37 tax. I think Carthage you pay $22 in fees. On top of that $1.37, forgot to write a check for it, you know. Whoops. Y'all wanted to figure anything on the road and bridge side and numbers or?
It's even more complicated.
Yeah.
We're at a rate of 2 point, right now, we're at 2,547.
That's a no new revenue rate, yes, collect the same amount of money.
We'll have to take the deficit out of that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a new revenue,
I think it's not relevant to, I don't think it's relevant to the normal. But how does that figure add up to all of our business? I'm not understanding.
Okay, if you put,
I mean, mine and Mike's
because
alone is too big.
what you're showing, a transfer from general road and bridge
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you got some money transfer.
is,
You didn't hear me come, did you?
Mine did the same.
You and Dawn wear the same shoes.
Yeah.
Mine too. That means they're not paying for it.
the address to that figure. That's what I provided on the That's how they're getting that in general revenue. So you see that, it's not just having one tax. That's really the value.
It's all good.
That's why y'all are on that side of the room.
Well, but some of that fine money comes from mine.
That's what she's showing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm showing him the add-ons. So what he sees on his budget is transferred from general road and bridge is not just property tax money. It's that plus the fees. Well, fire departments did.
That's,
Not all of them have, yeah.
That's ESD. That-
I mean, this is doing great.
Yeah.
I was shocked at how much money that little bit of tax, sales tax raises for the fire department.
Was for the ESD.
Yeah.
You've
Sales
got
tax.
lots, dollar store, all of the
The convenience,
gas stations, the
but you know, I mean, it's shocking. I mean, that's why our fire department has been able to upgrade their trucks. I mean, they got top of the line stuff. And like around Christmas, that goes up.
Every time Mom has an open house dinner, fire department gets a new grill.
Well, the fire department is not, Mott's is not having a gun show again.
Yeah.
A knife show.
They're not going
Nope, they said the other day they weren't having it, what I heard.
because COVID, they're just.
Yeah.
Getting everything because of COVID.
It's a good time to stop.
I'm glad it's coming after Brandon and Wade. That would have been a mess. Because we got my sister probably all done.
Do we promote them?
Yes.
Did they go get vaccinated? I vaccinated.
It's the HR man. Lord, he was sitting right there by me.
And there was, when the board was,
Oh,
took this one, he decided they drew up vaccines, so, yeah.
I've been vaccinated.
How do you
Did
do that?
you ever get the shot?
We got everything shut down.
Never did you get the shot?
Exactly, yeah. Within 5 minutes, you are like,
He's had
I know.
it.
No. It had to be 90 days.
Well, I know.
You know what, it lasts longer than that, I think.
I think it does.
And the reason I say that, Rachel got it, and her husband had it back in December, and they've been close.
Ooh, don't eat, please don't eat that.
Right, I'll put it back on.
Is it sweet or is it sour?
Everybody-
No, it's not, it's probably got a little bit.
someone else, they, yeah, like,
Weeds
It
are
says
kind of
it's slightly
that
sweet
deal.
corn.
Well, I will tell y'all, so
You notice that?
me personally, I don't feel comfortable basing it off of
yeah.
like 97%. I'd rather, especially with COVID right now.
Oh, well, people got
Well,
that free money.
Hey,
That's what I.
People got all that free money, plus they don't have nothing to spend their money on, so they pay their taxes.
That's the only thing that gets divorced. It ain't happening. I mean, I've seen an increase. I know what it is.
Spending it on the board? What'd you say?
Yes. We have a lot of kids out of that. And they didn't come get a job. They might have seen all the other departments, but they didn't come get a job. I can get some more coffee? The reason they're paying their taxes is because they don't have nowhere else to go. If they get kicked out of their house, the COVID, I bet you all will stay there.
Really, on this, on Yeti. all of our schools.
Oh, it's still-
Takes anything all weekend.
Good time.
They got all big,
You know, you can actually take that lid off. We'll keep you-
they'll have to put out lights on safety. He won't stay down that lane. Oh, we already had
Four places.
Great God.
Well,
He'll be back in jail. He can't help it. He's coming in here.
No, I'm good.
I don't think he lives here on the saving grade. I don't think he lives
the
here.
day after he got.
Yeah.
He was, he was
Sure,
about
take
it.
10,000 and you
And
have
next day, it said, Mom, nothing
10
more
to
nice
16.
come up there, but I copied that.
That's what I would say. it's somewhere between 10.
I don't know what he's up to, he's
I
up some.
think he's
Well,
got about a point, you know, he's
I
on
thought,
the
well, at least I don't have to worry about coming with that.
We can figure that into our
But
181.
still gonna have to deal with it because he filed the motion,
And
not to do it.
I mean, there's money for
But see, one reason I
doing
did
a digital file.
was,
10,000,
his insurance,
10 to 22. I think.
lease, his
You can put it to 10,000 if you do it.
mineral interest. Well, after a few years, they filed a mortgage for E-Trust.
Y'all had
a lien.
enough time to get through all that.
And I couldn't get
Information on
his, he says that it was
American
fraudulent,
Rescue.
that they didn't sign anything. And
That's one of the
because we
good
filed,
questions,
and we should understand that,
but y'all never gave
it's
an
put a
amount.
lien against his family's land.
So, are y'all, are you not? If
We
you are,
approved it, I think.
It's not a lien
I think we
against.
voted to do it.
voted to do it, but not to do
We
it.
did it.
y'all didn't specify whether it was the one year,
Didn't specify whether it's 1 year or 2 years.
right, Sandra?
I mean, you had put in your comment that it can be evaluated every 6 months, but that wasn't in the motion. And I don't know the amount of money. Because the money from the first part of it is sitting in the bank. The first part of the money is sitting in the bank. So if we're gonna give something to the hospital, I need to know what I'm actually.
Well, I don't think we're gonna give it to her. She's gonna bring you an invoice
Right.
on what that is.
But you haven't said, okay, this is the maximum amount for 6 months that we're willing to take out of our money.
So we're gonna do that before.
But
Right.
she presented 600,000
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
per year, and it was approved, but it wasn't specified 600,000. So.
Yeah, that's in my mind, that's why I was thinking it was the figure that she had. That she
We just need to be
But
clear.
we needs to go back.
put that amount, put it
I
amount.
don't wanna say, you know, do that and say, well, you did that without your story before, he didn't tell you how much to do, so. I wanted.
You want a limit on it so we can come back and get it.
We just need to have the direct.
Right. We need an amount. When we get close to that amount, we can come back and say, hey, we're not spending it. We're good, we don't need any more.
But I don't know.
Well, and also nobody can come back and say, you know what, we changed our mind, we don't want to spend 300, we just want to do 300,000. And the hospital get what we said.
What he did was on the left.
And it's gonna be an invoice. They're gonna get
It's gonna be a reimbursement,
Right.
because I've already spoken to Sandra, what she needs to present to me for backup, that I will have to present eventually to whoever audits.
So we just can't get on the next agenda, the 28th, of money amount.
It's something you need to get money out of. That costs.
I need to figure that in, too. Some of this stuff.
No, that's it, that's it.
That's how America has to do that grant.
So we're 181, sheriff's saying another 10.
No, we're mowing. Not on the break, we're just mowing. Yeah, two members, 10 or 20.
Looking at 20,000.
Yeah, I want, yeah, I'm looking at that because I really don't have a hard ordinance. I mean, I've got one, I've got to see if I can get something more. But I don't want to do a large amount. My day would say for terrible chance.
Need no
So
more of
that's
that.
right, and then I won't be able to use that to buy reservations.
Right.
But I need to expand on my filing space. And I don't know how y'all wanna do it. I want to be able to make those files available to whoever needs them. And on that third floor, everything is in cabinet, everything is in cabinet. I wanna get them out of those cabinets and into something like what Donnie's has, where whenever, and put it in a location somewhere either in the courthouse, somewhere in the courthouse is where I'd like to do it. But, and have someone to be able to pull those cases, the old ones,
Right.
and up to the new ones. Well, eventually I'm gonna be paperless, so we're gonna stop. But I hadn't got to that point yet. I had a psychological attachment to the paper. It's that simple.
So does Donnie.
So does Tim. I have, and it's a real thing that I need therapy on. But anyways, yes, I would like to have them all in one room, in one location that I can put a girl down there and say, okay, you can make your copies, you're gonna be in charge of that file room. And, so that, I had another thought, but it escaped me, so, but that's what I'm looking at, far out, not right now. But I want y'all to know that, so you keep it in your brain somewhere that that needs to be
Oh, yeah,
addressed.
quite a bit.
Oh, that was another thing. My vault that I have is completely full. I can't put another, and my judgment books that I keep in there, they're in there because that vault is fireproof. And I'm gonna have those digitalized and put them, I'm gonna put that digitalization on our computers. And I'm gonna do like Donnie's, put the disk and stuff into it. But I gotta get that out of my vault because I have to have that for my juvenile records and my adoptions. And,
That's for lunch.
I just don't, next time I gotta start stacking them on the floor. And I wanna pull all of those books out of there and put them in with the other file rooms, in the file room. So it can all be in one location. But I don't know how we're gonna do that. And I think that, that should be something that y'all need to get somebody to, if that third floor is big enough, if we could just open up that third floor, I wouldn't mind doing it up there. You know, cause that's where I am now. But an architect's gonna have to come up there and see what kind of paper load or what kind of load that floor will bear. I mean, that's just a, yeah, that's
Egress
just,
is the problem up there. You have people up there working, there's a fire starts, there's only one way out.
Yeah.
It's on that one way out.
Yeah.
That's the problem on the insurance side. It's why we have a
Well, that's
out there
why-
with egress, so
yes.
emergency.
Trampoline down around the window.
Yeah, oh yeah, put them a little chain outside.
Got the chain, ladder.
But that's what I'm saying.
So,
This is not just a Renee thing. It's gonna have to be a thought over all of this as what's most prudent and cost efficient for us to do.
But for you to do this, preservation and stuff, how much money will you?
I'm just gonna ask for a line item in my budget of 20,000 to help me start doing a little bit of loan and just go from there. And I need to address the vault issue is real. I need that right now.
3%.
But we can make accommodations.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I was gonna get those books digitalized.
Right.
I can take them out and put the rest of the stuff after I do that, because if they're damaged in a fire, I can always go to the vault and get what I have on CD and put that, I won't have the paper, but I will have
Right,
it.
right, 20,000.
That's what we say.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yes.
We have, if we don't adopt anything above the no tax rate, then we have 7%.
Percent in our
How high can
interest
they make it?
rate, 3 years, 10.5%.
Okay.
So what bank do, you just go to cash, First National, well, that's what I was talking about. Oh, okay.
So with her,
Yeah.
the sheriff's tent is the one to do that, that's gonna be about 30,000 on top of that. Look at 210.
Yeah, and I want to talk to my boys. Their company does some of it, I want to talk to Cobalt, I want to talk to Tony Ellis, and that'll be 3 bids. And I think that we can go from there and decide what I want to do. I just want to know.
Yeah, we can't go and put that in. No, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Right. Usually that
Well,
way.
and, I don't, if I do leave it alone, I can still do each time that I go around and do it.
Is that us?
You know,
Do what?
Somebody on the phone.
Is that where the,
Okay.
yes,
People are watching,
how many?
yes.
but nobody called in.
And Tommy said that he would do it, but if I work for him on the
So we
cover
need to go
and the
up
gold
minimum of
He wouldn't
210,
charge
right?
for that. He said, if I'm coming through, I'll start with him up, and when I'm coming back
So
through.
what number are we looking at right there?
And
Just
so, and he said that, you know, if you really want to get into come on down, pick them up, you know, have to charge you, but I can
I
send
got
it.
it, I got it right here.
Oh, yes.
36,492.
Okay, that's on the 181.
Doris, do you ever feel like what you gave them was a piece?
You
are
the
only
Board.
that they.
Yeah, and I didn't,
You
I
know,
had the 90.
it's just that one piece of paper.
I said just press
What was the,
That go by the last names of they're just gonna be on this presidency.
so,
The conflict point that can.
Thanks.
It's a sleep. Yeah, well.
Some things I worry
Well,
about,
some of this is like,
let's talk about the money that the government gave out.
yeah.
Might not have it this year. You know, where we'll be at.
We said something with the rate, current rate is now, what's 4.9. Cover that extra. What was the other one?
or the district clerk?
I don't know. If I don't have it, there's no reason.
Without ever hitting that.
And.
Without ever, and without putting ourselves
You
in
know,
a bind next year.
Right.
those bills,
And,
you know, I have.
And what was that?
I have
649.
bills that cover you from 1865 to
Yes, something.
1900.
So,
Yeah.
You know, and then,
on values
and it says it covers.
It'll be 3 cents less than
JJ
what the current rate is.
over
of,
here.
so this right here.
So-
Based on the.
It's been
Yeah, it's been transcribed over there, but here's the volume page.
The current one is
Volume,
six,
the
seven,
volume
eight, two.
in the page and the case number. So, you know.
How much
the
did, how
only
much
thing
was
I know
generated
is just
extra?
give it to them and say,
649.
this is, it is what it is, just preserve it,
Well, I
and
see it.
give it back.
How much?
214,000.
At 94%.
Yeah.
Or the that would cover those extra.
Mhm.
More than cover.
Yeah.
And that's still less than what it is right
Yeah, but your appraisals.
now. Your appraisal, yeah,
It's-
the values have gone up.
Now, we're gonna collect more money, that doesn't mean that everybody's gonna pay more money, the majority will. Some people will become exempt of where it was at this year, they won't pay any more money. Well, they don't do the improvement to their house.
Okay, if I'm doing this correctly, that's a 6,492 at 95% collection, that would get us to 7,002,067.
7,000,000, 2,000.
7,002,067. That's at 95%.
Right, so we
I did that
need
right.
7,267,000.
No, sir, 7,002,000.
2,000.
Yes. And $67.15.
I still can't write that.
7,002,067.
6,700.
Right. 067
0,6,700.
Yeah, 067.
and 15 cents.
That's 15 cents.
That's it, right.
I'm not going with whole numbers.
What rate is that,
That's at the
That would be
7002
Yeah, I got that.
067.
It's 6 now.
640, 649.
At 95%. Right.
Yeah, 95%.
Let's see what that one is.
The next one,
The one below it.
the one below, see what it is.
Who's gonna raise
.6782.
782. So we're right in here.
So don't,
That's what. Push equals, I could see it a whole lot better. Push equals.
so it only raises,
That would be $6,894,000.
Oh, what's rate, which one is it?
That would be at 90, that's why it would be, I think, 90.
Oh, that's what they use, yeah.
That would be at 95% collection, the 632.9.
Okay, the one above that.
Yeah, so it's
200. Oh, that's only.
That's not even counting the additional things.
do it on the 6.5. Did you do that one?
No, sir.
We were so good at it.
No, I'm not. You told Leanne just a second ago, it's like Greek.
Now you know why you have to take algebra.
Just basic ciphering, no, it's not algebra.
Yeah.
I always like geometry. Shapes and figures.
Why do you have all the food?
Figured on 695, wait, sorry, 6592. Would be 7,109,124.
And that's at 95%.
Yes, sir.
No sense.
And 73.
So that one, if you don't generate how much more? About another 107,000.
So what number are we at 95% to cover our increase? 6492, is that right?
Yes, that covers it the best. The next one creates like another 100,
Surplus.
like another $100,000, $102,000.
Which one creates the best, the 6.5,
6.4.
6.4, right there?
Yeah, at 95% collection.
And it still drops to like 3 cents.
Is 180 employees, that's how much it raises. About $1,000. We do that
But
way.
we had the 30,000, this is going to be. After there, you had 30,000.
It wasn't him. They sold it.
30
acres.
They're getting closer.
30 acre strip, they sold every bit of it. And they're all for clearing for bringing, built 5 homes.
So that's a subdivision.
No,
They
sold.
sold it for 30 acre lots.
And they all
30
have
acre tracts.
access to the county
Yeah,
road.
that's it.
So it's not a subdivision.
So
They all have their personal access to the county road. And every, on one piece of it is a man and his son are building 2 homes. And then all 3 of the other ones are, they're all building a home. So my beautiful little quaint country road that I've never had to even look when I go out my driveway, I gotta look now. Savannah said the other morning she had one come by her like a fly. So,
And it's all rare deal.
No DPS.
they're moving here by the droves, and every one of them, they're all from Houston.
Sorry?
But can you imagine being in the coast and having
I'm
to
sorry.
show
They pay resigned
for
from
a whole
the.
year?
Oh, really?
Didn't her husband very ill,
Yes, sir.
cancer?
About that. Was it an email? Yes, sir, just got it.
Probably overwhelmed. Okay, gentlemen, okay, well, I got some bridge.
Historical.
Bridgestone Lake Road and Bridge alone.
As a chair.
Go ahead, Nate.
He's got like every time he died.
The oncologist was supposed to talk with him last night. He has a blood clot in his leg. They were not going to put a filter on it because it was too risky. They did put him on Eliquis. It's possible that he could be released today, but prognosis is not good. That's what she said.
What type of cancer does he have?
He's got lung and brain.
Who's this?
Case has.
Is it time to recess or what?
I'm sorry.
He's not that old, is he?
He's, 65.
He's not old.
Yeah.
Is it good?
She's not, she's not early.
So that's
Not old at all.
It's not.
She buys my way.
Just some interesting calculations. I visited with my employee and where she's at 31,650. And I shared this with the treasurer yesterday in trying to evaluate, this possible increase of anyhow, at her rate, it's $15.20 per hour based upon a 2,080 hour possible work year. 14 holidays, 15 vacation days, 10 sick days, and 3 bereavement days. The value of that for paid time off is $5,107. The health insurance is going up from $9,040 per year to $9,521.04 effective November 1st, which is an additional increase of $481.04. The Aflac contribution last year was valued at $360 per year. Cell phone allowance, $675 for vision. Longevity, she's at $360. And that's a total of $10,555. The increase to the retirement, just in her behalf, is $553. So if we cover that deficit that we're gonna have, that's gonna be $1,034. So total benefits is $15,339. To cover the 8 weeks is about $3,200 part-time, for a total of $52,000 just for that one position. So it's pretty significant when you look at, $31,000, $31,650. It's expensive when you add all the costs and the value and benefits. So what's the pleasure of the court?
Judge, I'm scared to death to drop to that lowest rate. It might do to us next year, but and I think the 6,492 would be giving a 3% cut on the rate from what the current rate is. I know it's probably going, all kind of average out as far as the bottom line for individual. But, I think to be on the safe side, that'd be close to where we need to be.
You're talking about $20 on $100,000 valuation.
Yeah.
Be $40 on the $200,000 valuation.
And that's people, not brothers.
Right. And that's 2 trips to Sonic.
Or one to Whataburger.
Yeah, one.
Yeah, I had my first and last time there.
Where at?
Whataburger.
Yeah.
Oh, the living Whataburger.
That's why I go eat with Connie, she buys some.
and you don't have to pull out of your stock.
Exactly right.
I was doing Jack in the Box, and get 4 tacos and chicken sandwich for less than $4.
What about on road and bridge, Mike? Would you, 23 now?
I haven't really looked at it yet.
I mean, we really never did get into that one very deep yet.
We don't have near the deficit in that one.
No, no.
He's enjoying saying that.
Yes, that's.
And I guess that amount of deficit we have would be if we go with this bottom rate.
Right.
Yes, yeah, well. We're gonna have a deficit no matter what. But yeah, that no new revenue rate will not cover any of that deficit.
But if you go to the next one, it's not covering a whole lot of it. Is it 478, 480?
Yeah, in order for it to cover, it would be in between the, 0.235 and 0.2437. I think I could, it'd be tough, but I think I could swallow it, in the budget. And Jackie,
Well, we're at 2547 right now.
as far as like our reserves and that can cover the deficit that we have
That's all right.
on a road and bridge, like I have
2547.
a reserve.
That's what it is now.
Yeah.
That could swallow,
That's the only
That's
budget we use. is road and bridge.
I'm fine, I mean, just, yeah, 18,000, I can
You move around.
swallow it too, yeah.
A little bit tougher for me, but
Jake was looking at you funny.
Well, I've got an employee retiring in September, and I don't intend to fill that spot, so
Well, I just had one retired,
you probably don't fill it. Or
not,
you
no, not soon,
don't.
so that's
Still on
gonna
budget
help
though.
make up some of that. I'm trying to figure out why I haven't.
Well, it's increase in longevity, insurance, and all of that. That's what it is.
Yeah, what college, you know.
Because the retirement match went up, so
Right.
I had to put more in for that. And then the longevity.
So,
It's the same thing as the 181 in the general fund.
yeah. So by the end of the year, what is that gonna be?
Okay, you want me to wrap it up?
I mean, is it gonna be considerable more, or, of course, probably not with me losing it.
That's for next year.
That's for next.
That's for next year, yes. And this is, deficit is for next year.
Yeah, I think I can absorb it.
Stay at the no new revenue rate.
Yeah.
Or,
You do it.
I mean, we could go,
I mean, we're at 2547
that's
now.
what we're saying, we went to 2342, it's going to be 2 cents, 2.5 cents difference.
What'd you say, Mike?
2/3 and
You're
2.42.
Of course.
that is based off of the, 94%.
Yeah, that's right, I didn't figure that in on that's on the collection.
That's all it is. How much is that for fund? Not really, a couple of bucks.
It's not a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's less than $1 difference. It's the same
It's
exact-
right at 50 cents.
it's the same exactly for the rate, so yeah.
You may want to see what the collection rate is average from what the net's got for you. Because just 1 cent or 1% could be significant, in the grand scheme of things. And that may help you to figure out
Yeah.
how much.
Is she gonna be back pretty quick? or-
She didn't say, she just said she was headed to the office to do
Was
that.
that collection rate on everything or just general fund, or do you know?
No, it shows general fund and
Well, I'm talking about the number she gave us, the percentage.
Collection percent.
Yeah.
She just said.
It should be everything, I mean, if they're all in the same, like, what's in the same.
Okay. Yeah, but they could come in and pay school taxes and not county taxes, and make the percentage go up.
Okay, so if we, like, 2,342 at 95% would be 2,510,600.
About, $26,000.
Still, you know, deficit, cover, it, but you get
That's a good thing.
What's the deficit total for all four of them?
57,546.17. I just use whole numbers now.
So that was about half, that's about
They
half.
cut it in half.
If we went with the 2,342.
Yeah, at 95%. Right.
You could go over here, just to there, but the values, you get it, well, that would be to absorb that.
Yeah.
So it's less than the number now. That's what they don't
If they would drop that 2 cents, and drop 3 on the other one. That'd be 5 cents total.
Drop the rate. Not the appraisals, not the collection.
Well, I can live with it, but I know we're trying to, we're trying to just keep what we got.
Yeah.
And if the railroad costs paying about the same money, which is
Yeah.
material too.
I've spent, you know, pretty good amount of what was put back just to try to put a dent in some bad areas. Too many more years is gonna be skimming there, which I'm not gonna be able to do it next year.
Going, yeah.
We're gonna help you.
This year?
Get that railroad.
Yeah, I figured it up. I think, you say we probably get around 500.
I can replace that.
So do we need to make a motion?
75.
We're still coming.
Well, you can't-
We're waiting on one that.
I mean, we could recess and come back after lunch.
You can't vote on anything, but,
Yes.
That's
yeah,
right.
we can't vote on
Is that your pleasure?
Well, we can, I mean, I don't know how long Lynette need to do her,
Let's find out.
yeah, if you don't mind, find
Yeah,
out.
because I'd hate to come back after lunch if we could sit here another few minutes and go.
It'd be done, yeah.
Oh. We're actually working today.
I got crew working too, some of them.
We're cleaning that precinct 3 mess. You know what that's what we did yesterday? We ended up getting a total of 4 loads of that good asphalt. And then we got 6 or 8 loads of gumbo that we had to haul off for. You know what I told them? I told them take it down there and dump in y'all's pile.
The cities don't.
And
get
Billy McNally looked at me and goes, what? I said, yeah, right in front of the loader. I said, okay, right there.
The cities don't get this, we don't get one. We don't have 2 trucks. There's one, but very little.
What do y'all do?
For some
The
cities.
cities do it on the street, 200 feet.
Can you transfer me to Lynette? Fine, thank you.
2 inches. It ain't got to
No, ma'am. She left the commissioner's workshop to go do some
30
calculations.
inches,
They're just interested in knowing how much time.
and it was
30 inches deep.
Yes, that's why we're hauling off gumbo.
287 is going 24 inches deep, where it's falling through the, we get all the way down in the mud. That's where they need to go, they said.
They completely,
Stabilize it.
they completely finished that day before yesterday, and I drove through there, and I thought, wonder how long it'll be before it messes up again. Before dark, there was water gurgling up through it.
Water table has changed all these rain.
No, it's a spring of that
Oh.
road. And I mean, go pour you some concrete over it. I mean, it's gonna be, I guarantee you, they're gonna dig that out again. I mean, it ain't gonna last.
That spring came from Harvey. It moved everything around. I got some new underground springs.
Some of the stuff they did the other day, it was hauled off and they do stuff. Kirk City's thinking we need to take that back up.
That's what we've been doing.
We all taking that back up.
What, they put that on the other day while y'all were getting all that. Now,
Rain on it every.
brand new asphalt is bowling. And so yesterday, we got 2 loads of good stuff and 6 loads of gumbo.
You said 4 loads.
Well, we got 2 loads.
Well, they were half loads, is what they were.
Sounds
Four
better.
half loads.
6 sounds better than
We
4.
got a belly dump today in the dump truck of that new asphalt.
Hey, guys, just wondering about taking a break and coming back after lunch, or if you were close to
Kelly, we did.
bringing that information back, just trying to get
And you
a
buy
sense
it
of
with
time.
$40 a ton.
You know, we went over there this week and bought like.
Well, why don't we just do that? Yeah, we'll just do a lunch break and then come back. What time, for you to be finished by 1:30?
Yeah, and if you put that for the first meal there, if you put it down right there. Yeah,
All right, thanks.
Like
All right,
that. You don't, then you go pile it up, and dig it out.
1:30 should be ready.
1:30.
I make a motion, we recess to 1:30.
There's a motion, second, there's multiple seconds. Stand in recess until 1:30. Thank you. We'll make it official.
We're gonna get you one of them.
No, don't.
This is what I need.
We'll get back to our courtroom.